Thank you. I'm Ron Peabody. I live at 625 South Gay Street, Knoxville 37902. I'm here today basically speaking for many residents of Vestal and South Knoxville. Unfortunately, because of the timing of this meeting on a daily basis, most of these folks work and are unable to attend. There are a few residents here. I'd like to speak to you about the appropriateness of the use on review of this site. Last year, this site was denied use on review by a vote of 12-1. During the meeting, there was no mention of parking issues. It has recently been said that the only thing that has changed since last year is the number of parking spaces, but this is not correct. There have been substantial material changes in the proposed operation of this facility, which will impact your decision today. Before I speak directly to those changes, I want to explain that it is possible to have specific zoning for these proposed permanent supportive housing units under the 10-year plan. I have handouts that I've given each of you in reference to a zoning ordinance that was passed in San Francisco in regards to single-room occupancy. There was a protective zoning ordinance which protected the residents of the SROs in this type of zoning against in a light commercial zoning to protect because of health concerns of the residents. As you can see by the handout, there is a myth that there can be no zoning for PSH units because some allege this would be a violation of the Federal Fair Housing Act. In San Francisco, the zoning was done to protect the residents of the PSH units, as well as other types of SRO, low-income or homeless housing. It creates a zoning that prohibits PSH units in light industrial zones to protect the residents from the risk of air pollution. We need a specific zoning for PSH units in Knoxville and Knox County to protect the residents of these units. The requirement should be 24/7, 365-day-a-year supervision by a resident on-site trained case manager with a maximum walking distance to bus transportation, and there should be no mixing of the chronically homeless and non-chronically homeless. Housing for the chronically homeless will be, by its nature, longer-term housing than the non-chronically homeless, or more traditional type housing. Non-chronically homeless may only need short-term housing or more traditional type housing, and that is not the stated intent of the permanent supportive housing by the 10-year plan. This now brings me to the substantial material changes that have occurred from last year. On July 29th, 2010, in a meeting not far from here at the South Knox Community Center, the 10-year plan made sweeping material changes to the Flenniken project. The chronically homeless are a protected class under ADA and HUD guidelines. The non-chronically homeless in most cases are not a protected class under ADA guidelines. The 10-year plan was set up to address processes that led to homelessness and to end chronic homelessness in 10 years. It is not authorized to provide housing to the entire homeless population of Knoxville. But in the meeting on July 29th, the 10-year plan for the first time publicly abruptly changed their mission statement to include the non-chronically homeless and to go co-ed at the Flenniken site. This revelation is a substantial material change which makes this project unviable according to the charter of the 10-year plan and the services they propose to provide. Because of this, I ask you to deny use on review for this site. This material change is precisely why Knoxville needs a specific zoning for PSH units. The residents must be protected and provided safe and appropriate housing to facilitate their recovery and reintegration into society. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members, I'm John King, P.O. Box 2425, Knoxville, Tennessee 37901. I'm familiar with this site. I drive by it about 3 to 4 times a week. I've watched it over the years. I have to say I would like to see something done with it, but unlike many others, I don't know that means whatever is proposed for a change to it that I support. I'm here now today speaking in opposition to this proposal. Given the parameters that Chair and Council of this body has suggested we be limited to. I'm having some difficulty in trying to voice concerns or points in opposition. This body, the last time it had a proposal for this development before it turned it down, as has already been pointed out, 12-1. The only change now is there's more parking, and there's a different design to a building addition. It's still the same thing it was before, except for the changes noted by Mr. Peabody. I have difficulty in responding or talking about it when I realize that what you have before you is a use on review application for approval of a development plan, and within your zoning ordinance there are standards by which this body is to be guided in voting to approve or not approve. The constraints that have been placed or suggested don't quite square up with what your rights and obligations are under the use on review. I'm simply going to remind you, and you probably don't need reminding, most of you I'm sure are well familiar with uses on review. Article 7, Section 5 deals with the standards for review of uses on review. Section 5B4 says the Planning Commission may approve a development plan or use permitted on review where it can be shown that the proposed plan or use is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance, with the general plan and the one-year plan, and is reasonably necessary for the convenience and welfare of the community. Planning Commission may deny a proposed plan where the above cannot be shown, or where it can be shown that approval would have an adverse impact on the character of the neighborhood in which the site is located. And it further says you, as this body, are permitted to exercise administrative judgment about the location and appropriateness of uses permitted on review. I suggest to you that that is what you can and may do in consideration of this particular matter. As I said before, this body had before it this proposal and turned it down. I would suggest again that reasons exist that you may do so again, given the, if you will, suggestions and directions of the chair and council. I'm going to try to respect that. I'm not going to talk about it any further except to remind this body that you certainly can exercise your discretion. You have been provided with a lot of information from various sources about this proposal. I'm sure you have, as you normally do, read, looked at it, and given it your thoughtful reflection. What I would ask that you do is now apply that thoughtful reflection to the matter before you and turn this application down.
Thank you, Mr. King. I'd like to ask Mr. Wise just to take a brief second, and as we talked one time before about some of the constraints we have in when you look at something like this, the caution we have to have in allowing what's going to be, who's going to be in there to determine our decision on this land use. If you could just take a second.
The courts have held, and there are regulatory opinions as well, that the chronically homeless fall into that suspect category of persons which cannot be discriminated against, in this case in public housing or other housing, without repercussions, which would be monetary and injunctive relief. Housing decisions with regard to persons that are in the suspect category need to be void of any consideration of those criteria. So you're presented with a land use decision for a piece of property, for an apartment building, or whatever it is in this case, and it needs to be within the confines of that, not reflecting on any potential type of tenancy that might result.